Okay then, what we have, obviously some people will recognise this. This is actually one of the larger figures from Steamforge's Dark Souls board game. Love it or hate it, I know there was a lot of hassle with this being fulfilled as a Kickstarter, but I was asked to do a bit of work on some of the figures for somebody, so I've decided to show this one. Obviously anybody that knows the game, it's usually basically just like all gold or bronze. So I don't do non-metallics a lot really anyway, because it's quite time consuming for somebody that doesn't do it a lot. So I am going to basically just show a video of how to do it, I suppose, old school with metallic paints. And the fact that you only really need at least two metallics to actually do that. So yeah, quite a big chunky figure, so a lot of flat areas, but still lots of little bit of extra details as well. Obviously we'll be putting a wash into this as well, just to get inside all those little crevices and things like that there. So what will happen is when I'll undercoat it black, and then what I do is I go over it with a brown, which is usually a burnt umber. They give me that base to start working on the metallics, and it's just a nice flat neutral colour, not an extra metallic or anything like that. I used to use the old GW tin bits, or I've used brass or bronze colours in the past, but I find that just using a plain brown gives you a nice flat base colour to work from. So we'll get that all undercoated in the black and the brown. Give you a bit of an idea of what it will look like, or close to it. We do have his mate done. Okay, so this has already been done. I was experimenting with this so I could actually see how far I wanted to do it, or what kind of highlight I was going to go for. I actually highlighted it quite heavily, right up the using near enough like a pure silver color, and then I put the wash on, and I put the wash on quite heavily, because I really want a lot of dark recesses and stuff into the armor, so it didn't look absolutely bright, shiny, and brand new. What happened is it quite honestly obliterated a lot of the colouring, so I probably went too heavy. So what I ended up doing was going back over to a wee bit again, but with certain highlights, not as far up as I had done originally. I actually quite like that one as far as I got it took. You will see some extra highlighting around this area and stuff like that. The light doesn't really show it. There is quite a bit of light shading back up to it again, but not as far as I had taken it. So what's going to happen is he's going to be done the exact same way. I'll show it stage by stage, and when I show you what sort of I'm doing. But as I say, I'll come back in the next little bit here once I get him undercoated and ready for painting, and we'll see what happens from there. Okay, so got the black undercoat on, and then the brown base colour that we showed earlier. So what we're going to do is put the first layer of gold onto this, and this is just going to go straight on. It won't be pretty, okay, it'll just be basically splashed on, or basically just throw the paint thrown on. Obviously we're going for something similar to our friend we've already seen. So the first one, first layer, will just be me showing the gold going on, and that'll be it. So it will. And as I say, it's not designed to be pretty. It'll just be basically splashed on. But get the brush. Now, the brush is just an old beat up brush, nothing special, no arty dry brush types, just a brush. Basically I'm using this because it's just an old brush. This is going to be, as I say, it's not a neat job, but it's not basically dipping the figure into. I'm having practicing a wee bit. Okay, so it does look a bit rough and ready. But yeah, basically all it is basically giving the whole thing a decent scrub. So it's like a big, heavy, dry brush going on the whole figure. See, it's not pretty, it's not neat. It doesn't have to be. As long as you're getting a nice, decent enough coat of the gold onto it. Yes, it'll look a bit streaky and stuff like that. Get a bit more into focus. Might look a bit streaky and a bit patched. But for these, I don't want it nice and bright and shiny that it's just walked out of the armory. Okay, I do want a bit of grime and dirt. It's almost just a big, massive, heavy dry brush. Basically scrubbing the paint onto it. And I am actually taking quite a bit of paint off the brush. So I'm just not, it's just not getting dipped into it, so to speak. I'll try and get this into focus. I keep looking at the figure instead of looking through the camera, so I'll keep putting the figure out of the way. I'm not worried about the half the weapon. Actually, I'm going to leave it different. I'm actually going to do a bit of black onto that. Just the simple reason is I think I stand out a little bit more, because any of the artwork or any of the sort of samples I've seen of this, it is just everything just pure gold. So changing it about a wee bit. Oops, get some more paint on the brush. And yeah, I am just picking it up whatever bit I can. It is quite chunky. And do be sure to get in underneath. A lot of people think, oh yeah, nobody looks under the figures or anything like that. But a lot of people actually do. When people pick it up and they look around, you're always going to end up finding somebody will spot the bit you didn't paint. And they go, oh look, you missed a bit. Grief. Must have magnifiers or eyes sometimes for some bits. Oh, again, putting it out of the camera. Apologies. Look through the camera. I'm not worried about it if it goes on the base anyway. You can see a lot of the black, brown and stuff on the base anyway. So. So throughout that, you can still see a lot of the brown coming through. A lot more maybe in some areas than others. But it is quite rough and ready. It's actually a lot darker. I'll switch one of the lights off. That makes a bit of a difference. Might help a bit better. You can still see quite a bit of the brown in it. Okay, so that's it. That's basically the first layer of gold on. And that's the old shining gold from Workshop. I'm lucky I still have some of that. I quite like using it. I know a lot of people swear by the Retributor armor. I kind of don't really like the shade as much as I do like the old shining gold. So quite lucky, because this is only a couple of pieces I'm doing for somebody. I'm not really killing my dwindling supply that much. So yeah, so basically that's your first coat of gold. Next thing we do is just basically we're going to be throwing some silver into it. So it's basically just Runefang steel. I quite like that colour, that particular shade. Nearly due to the fact I've no chainmail left, the old GW colour. So yeah, what I'll do is obviously I'll go over this a bit. And then what we'll do is come back and I'll basically have the paint mixed up with the gold and the first layer of the silver. So what will happen is I'll put that on, do another level with a bit more silver into it. And then what I do is I give it a mass wash. Hopefully, not as heavy as the other, the one I did on this. Okay. It wasn't really, really dark, though. I really did like it. but it meant a lot more work to bring the armor back up. So it was. So maybe try a lighter wash on this guy so there's not as many colours going on after that, because what I do is basically just a few more highlights with a bit more silver into it, and then just to re-highlight it again. But once we get a couple of shades on that, we'll obviously show that. But we'll come back and I'll show you in the next little section here that we do a bit with some silver mixed in, and we'll go from there. Right, we have the next layer sort of mixed and ready. So what it is just basically a 50-50 mix, evenly spread out on it, and that's how we look. What we're gonna do now, what we're doing is going over a bit lighter this time. Don't hit the camera. You see, I'm not being as vigorous with this as I was with the first one. Well, as we know, with any kind of dry brushing, you're trying to do just hit it in a certain way, get a bit of light onto it. I might have done me a bit more silver in that one. Might not have been a perfect mix, but we'll see how it goes. That's a bit better. Yeah, it's alright, it's not bad. So yeah, again, just go round it a bit lighter this time, so you're only picking up. Again, the more rest there is, so there's one a bit more lighter up there. On the chest piece, darker down really. Very hard to see. You can maybe see it in a few pieces. And you can't. You can hear any noise in the background. It's the puppy. He decided he wants to join in. So yeah, you can see it on some pieces there. The next layer will be a bit more visible. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight in and mix a bit of silver in here. So another good mix of silver. So it's more of a coming near the, be near enough 30% gold, or 40% gold, 60% silver, or a bit more, depending on how light you want it to go. It's one of those things you can experiment with your own colours, what way you want it to go, how light you want them to be, or how dark you want it to be. Let's see, just hit that a wee bit. That needs more silver. Just mix it. Try it again. It is showing, but not as much as I want it to be, actually. I'm only adding a little bit and a little bit and a little bit because I don't want to end up too much and then having to restart all over again. Get around the first piece. Yeah, I can See, well, I can definitely see that a lot more. Yeah, it's up there. Take a lot more off the brush. So this would actually be the kind of where I'd finally take it to before I put any kind of wash on. Yeah, it's quite subtle, the silver and up. Through the camera anyway, I'm looking over the top of the camera when positioned. It's a lot different. It's quite different. I'm going to run out of mix. Okay. So I'm really just trying to hit the most extreme bits. This guy's quite bulky and quite awkward to hold and keep hitting the camera. Okay. Hopefully this silver can be a bit final dry brush over the top of that. It's a bit more visible. What I'll do is I'll tidy it up a wee bit as I go along, because I've got a wee bit still there in the mix. Just notice a few places I want extra hit. So what will happen now is I'm going to leave that to sort of sit for a bit. Make sure it's dry. Check it, tidy it up a wee bit. And then basically what I'm doing is just going to go through the wash on. I'll show that bit. And you'll think once the wash is going on, and basically when the next thing you see when it's dry, you'll think, oh my god, what's he done? Don't panic. I like to do it this way because I already like to have some colour there. So I'm really sort of light and dark shades before I go back in again. And then basically it's following the same process. But the next time is I'll use a different brush where I'm sort of more painting it on rather than sort of dry brushing it on. But basically what we'll do is the next section here, I'll show you when I'm just put the wash on and let you see that happening. And just basically chat your way through that. Basically the simplest stage out of the whole way through this process, and just going out a wash. This is what I actually you pretty much use for most golds. It's the old Winsor Newton Peat Brown ink. I've got a bit of water here. I'm going to thin it down a wee bit, not a lot. Again, it depends on your taste. If you like it really dark, don't thin it down, or you can basically water this to death. It'll still have some sort of colour at some stage. I'm just trying to get a wee bit of a mix going here. Right. Doesn't have to be pretty. Just making sure it goes on. And basically make sure every piece gets a bit of the wash onto it. Don't just do it on one or two bits, do it on everything. So when you come back to it later and you've kind of left bits, you will see the difference. Anybody who uses any kind of inks or washes and stuff knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, yeah, even the bits underneath. Again, remember those people who spot everything. Mix up some more. I usually like to go pretty heavy with it. Just thin it down a wee bit. Okay, let's take light over there. I'm actually putting so much on, it's actually starting to run down onto the table. So we're getting the general idea of the wash. Right, sort of disappeared right on all the crevices and stuff. What'll happen is obviously when that dries, it actually will just darken down everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the ink, because it can be quite time consuming trying to get it on the little nooks and crannies. We'll leave it to dry, come back, and then we'll start on sort of the final highlighting and sort of maybe doing a little bit more bits and pieces on it. With the wash is put on, it didn't go on quite as well as I wanted it. For some unknown reason, I don't know what was happening there. It may have been just the overall bulk of the particular figure, so I had to clean it up a wee bit and tidy it up and go back in with a little bit of the shade from Games Workshop, the Earth shade. They actually help with that, and it has darkened it down quite a wee bit. Hopefully the lighting's a bit better today. So it has. So I've had to leave it like that. Obviously, as you can see, you would think with all the detail work that we actually did yesterday, it's now just been obliterated. It hasn't. The lighting obviously doesn't really show it. You can see it as you're sort of turning. You can see lighter and darker parts. So it actually has helped do that. So initially, the main one is a very light paint over. Now we're not going to try and scrub this as like we did yesterday. It showed a lot of very heavy dry brushing. This is going to be very, very light, different brush. And it is just picking up really just all the highlighted areas, the raised areas. And then it's quite lightly. It is just basically pure shining gold again, with a little bit of the silver in it. Paint any brush. And just mix a bit more up. See, I'm not hitting this too heavy. It is really just picking up a lot of just pretty much the edge, with a little bit more of where you want the light to shine on it. I'm just going over a few different pieces here just to see how it works. It's going to go on quite nicely. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to finish this section of it and then do the mix again, and just show you more or less what the final highlight will look like. So that'll basically take me a wee while. I'll get that finished and I'll come back when I'm doing the final highlighting. Right, we have the paint mixed up and trying to get this into focus. We started a little bit, but it was just to see if I had the mix right. So literally all I'm doing is put a little bit of the gold and silver mix, mostly silver. It all depends on your own taste. Now you may think, what was the whole point? But doing all that work and then going more or less kind of back over it again. The reason for it was just to get a lot of depth and colour into it. And I'm actually experimenting with doing different things at the minute. Because obviously there's loads of different techniques out there. Loads of different ways to do things. And I'm just trying to see, if I do this, will it make it quicker? If I do this, does it give me a different effect? That is pretty much the reasoning. Switch to a finer brush. make it a bit better. I'm experimenting with the lighting and stuff and how things can go. You can see where I've went quite heavy in there with it. So you will see the effect. The thing is, you can go over this quite lightly, you don't have to do it heavy. And it is just hitting along the edges. We're hitting little bits that you think you want a bit more light on. So say I want the light to shine a bit more on here, do a little bit across the middle, and hit along the bottom. And not hit the camera. So in here is quite, look at the focus, you can see it's actually quite dark, so I actually would only just maybe highlight that particular edge, go around, hit the opposite edge, and just try and bring out that there is a lot of dark areas you want to shade it a wee bit differently. But it is just basically taking your time with it. This is the time consuming part, is basically when you're going over doing these little details so you actually get the coverage that you want. And until you're happy and satisfied with it, you just keep trying. I don't mind getting a little bit onto the main shaft of the weapon, namely due to the fact I haven't finished this, and actually I'm just going to do this black just to make it sort of different and sit a wee bit. So I'm just trying to see how it looks in different areas. Do I need to add more silver to it? Do I need to add more gold to it? Unfortunately, I keep losing focus, which is really annoying. So it is basically just generally going around until you're happy and satisfied with it. And not all those bits have been hit yet. Trying to find an area that will actually show up quite well. You see that more on the edge. I want to go heavy with that one, so I always go back in and clean that bit. But generally what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around, I'm going to finish it all. I'm going to completely finish the base and the shaft of the weapon and stuff like that. And basically just show you generally the finished piece. After that, I'll have a quick chat. Thank you. So, completely finished him. And just brought his mate out as well. So, both are looking a little bit different. One on the right's actually a bit more darker. The guy, the larger figure, obviously, is a little bit different. But I'm still happy with the overall effect. So it does look pretty menacing, actually. So yeah, it was basically trying to do this with just generally two colours. I did chop and change a little bit throughout it, but the main bulk was just gold and silver. And you can take it up to just to the first sort of layers that we did, with the gold silver mix, and add a bit more silver to it. You don't actually have to go the whole way through and do a wash. If you don't wish, you can just leave it like that. I just wanted a bit more darker tone into it, but as I say, I've been kind of experimenting and playing about with the figure a little bit. Thankfully, the person I'm working on it for doesn't mind that. I hope he doesn't. So yeah, it was just me experimenting a little bit with colours, washes, say doing like the highlights, and just working with it in different ways. The only thing that needs to be done to him now is give it a coat of varnish. It'll be a satin varnish, but it'll still keep a bit of a shine to it rather than gloss. I don't like the gloss varnish. His friend's been done in satin, and you can still see the shine in his armour. So you can't. So it'll be a nice satin varnish. I actually use a few different things, but I'm really liking these at the minute from Winsor & Newton. It's a really nice satin varnish. Doesn't clog or anything like that. It doesn't discolour. I haven't seen any discoloration in anything I've used it on so far. So that is it. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you really liked it, hit the subscribe button, because hopefully I'll be doing a few more videos on painting and maybe doing some terrain stuff as well. Cheers.